Reddit calls itself the heart of the internet, always beating and always awake. It's where curiosity turns into obsession and one innocent click becomes a rabbit hole you didn't mean to fall into. And if you're looking for something disturbing, you'll find it, and it never seems to end. Today, we're diving straight into that madness. Some disturbing Reddit rabbit holes that are so unsettling they'll make your stomach turn. And make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. Sick of people faking too. Reddit is home to thousands of communities, a lot of which are places where people can discuss things that can't normally be discussed at the dinner table. You can find adult content, morbid true crime, and a laundry list of weird things. Among these not safe for work groups, there's one genre of subreddit that is more dangerous and more heartbreaking than any other. The ones that discuss drugs. r/currently tripping, r/Adderall, r/cannabis are all thriving communities, but we're not talking about them today. We're talking about r/DPH. Take one look at this subreddit and you'll find hundreds of users enjoying their high and hundreds of users who desperately need help. The main purpose of this community is to talk about their recreational drug use. And sometimes users do post simple, even lighthearted experiences on there. Scrolling through DPH, I saw one post from someone who shares that they started hearing voices while high, and swore the voice was singing Bohemian Rhapsody. Sounds fun. Nothing out of the ordinary for someone that's on drugs, but not all posts are like that. In fact, most aren't. Scrolling through r/DPH is like sitting in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. It's one post after another. Someone who's gone too far, is spiraling into addiction, and doesn't know how to stop. What makes it even more heartbreaking is that they're all addicted to Benadryl. DPH is an antihistamine that is an active ingredient in Benadryl. It works great for allergies, the common cold, and even as a sleep aid. But if taken in ridiculously high amounts, you can get high and hallucinate off it. Think of it sort of like LSD, but cheaper and more accessible. Although it's horrifically dangerous, but we'll get into the dangers later on. And this is where it all begins for user tired of people faking it too. His story begins in January of 2020. His post reads as follows. I'm curious as to how y'all found out about DPH, why you started using it recreationally, and how it affected your life, both negatively and or positively. I know your experiences will be subjective and personal only to you, but I'm still curious. I first found out about DPH on January 20th, 2019 after smoking marijuana with a couple of my friends the previous night. We'd been talking about getting some LSD, shrooms, and other hallucinogens, but I had never tried those drugs, and I honestly didn't have the money at the time to buy them. So instead, I went searching on Google for cheap and legal substances that I could take as a substitute hallucinogenic. I found a website with like 10 different legal types of substances that I could buy to hallucinate on. But unfortunately, the one that caught my attention the most was DPH. I went farther on the internet to research in depth about the long-term and short-term side effects of abusing DPH, the physical symptoms of a DPH overdose, and various people's trip experiences on different amounts of DPH, where to buy a large quantity of the cheapest off-brand Benadryl, and looked at several drug/alcohol interactions with DPH. I did not end up taking Benadryl until February 15th, 2019. My first trip was on a lot of DPH, and it was horrible honestly. I wasn't smart about it at all. I remember taking it with 6 cans of beer around 11 p.m. under some random highway. I remember walking aimlessly around town, kept falling, kept slurring my speech, and ended up asking the local PD to drive me to the ER. It was pretty stupid of me. But anyways, since February 15th, I've probably ingested over 1,000 pills of Benadryl, and my tolerance has gotten extremely high to where it at least takes 32 pills to get me even a little high. So basically, that's a very brief summary of how I got this way. You can ask me questions about my experience here, and I'll answer y'all if you want any more details. Already, it's clear. OP is in deep. Way too deep. And now let's get our facts straight. The maximum amount of Benadryl that should be taken within a day is 300 milligrams. That's the max, and that's 6 pills. OP is taking at least 32 pills at a time, and doing that frequently for a year. It's not recommended to even take the max dosage for an extended period of time. Benadryl is not a long-term medication. So, what happens if you take more than you're supposed to? What happens if you use it for months or years at a time? Well, serious heart problems, seizures, coma, or death. And you can also develop dementia and Alzheimer's and other sorts of memory problems. So nothing good. But sadly, like a lot of people struggling with addiction, those consequences aren't enough to get one to stop. And from the first post, it doesn't seem like the OP realizes how deep he is, and it was about to get worse. So much worse. He makes a second post. I just took a few thousand mgs of DPH. It probably wasn't the best idea to take 90 pills. And commenters were worried. Someone says, my God, my guess is that you're going to be completely lose your mind for about 24 hours. See and experience some of the worst and most frightening things anyone has ever experienced. Feel like absolute shit for about a week, have memory problems for about 2 weeks, but ultimately come out the other side. Never ever do this again. LOL. And I didn't cover this earlier, but if you're not familiar, when you hallucinate on Benadryl, you don't get this euphoric high that you sometimes get on psilocybin mushrooms or LSD. You see people, animals, or insects that aren't there, like spiders or shadow people and strangers in the room. You hear voices or sounds and they aren't there, and you believe ordinary objects are something else, like text messages that aren't on your phone or TV shows playing when the TV is off. And also you have intense confusion and memory gaps, and people often don't realize they're hallucinating. It causes severe anxiety or paranoia, and physical effects like dry mouth, eyes, overheating, racing heart, tremors, and urinary retention. So basically, you just enter a nightmare state for a few hours to a few days. So I don't even know why anyone wants to do this anyways, but the dosage, the 90 pills that the OP took, is not one people always survive or make it out the other side without long-lasting side effects. And the commenters think he's dead or in the hospital. But then the OP follows up one day later, saying, haha, sorry for leaving y'all hanging for a day. I don't really remember much of what happened in the past 48 hours. All I can definitively say is that I had 5 seizures. I set up a room video camera to monitor me to see if I had any seizures. I didn't sleep. I ran a fever of 104 degrees, which didn't break until a couple hours ago. I wasn't able to keep any food or drink down, so I'm like really parched, LOL. I fainted twice at my college, and now I have a severe headache/hangover from that big dose. Again, I'm sorry for worrying y'all. I don't even remember posting that I had taken 90 pills, so I must have posted it when I was blacked out. This is absolutely heartbreaking. It's gotten to be too much for him. Benadryl has completely taken over his life. I mean, 90 pills? OP is now completely dependent upon it. He can't properly go to school or work. He's not sleeping. And then a day later, another post titled, currently have ingested a few thousand more milligrams and will be ingesting 9,000 mgs tomorrow afternoon. Do you ever just break down and cry? Do you ever just realize your life has no purpose and you don't care if you die? Do you ever just want your loved ones to not worry, so when they ask you if you're okay, you lie? I've been so angry with the world and myself and everyone in it. I hate that I'm so mad all the time, because I'm usually a very kind, patient, and compassionate person. This uncontrollable rage has been building up inside my mind for the past several days, and it terrifies me thinking about what damage I'm capable of doing. I need it to stop. I need everything to stop. I can't do this anymore. I'm so alone, and I don't want to be here. P.S. I know that there's a high chance of me surviving this, but I'm posting this just in case I succeed. If you're new to the subreddit and have never tried Benadryl, I strongly urge you to leave this hell site before you're sucked into this endless black hole of terror, pain, and confusion. And the commenters become incredibly concerned for the OP. They wanted to help him, but because his account is anonymous, there's nothing they can do. Someone in the comments says, "It will be a miserable, excruciating, unbearable death. Please do not do it. Life is terrible, the world is frustrating, and the people in it are horrible. I promise you, if you wait it out, things will get better." I'm not just saying that either. It took multiple ODs, S-word attempts. God, for months I was praying for God to kill me every day and night. Eventually, when you get sober, when you start to get healthy, make one last effort to have a good life, the pain goes away and you're stronger because of it. I know you think you have nothing left, because that's how I felt a year ago. But you're wrong. Make an effort to be healthy. Start working out. Say yes to anything, positive of course, and to any interesting experience somebody offers you. Even ask for help if you're comfortable with it. If you push yourself, give life just one last chance. You'll be so happy because of it. Don't give up. It takes months of actively trying to change, but I promise, seriously promise, it will get better. Please message me if you'd like to talk. We could share some more stories and experiences, or talk about whatever you'd like. I'd be happy to help, friend. And everyone in the comments just wants to help the OP. In another comment, Tired of People Faking It Too writes, "Well, I do want to stop, but I don't want to stop taking DPH until I can find an alternative method to cope with my life, because I take Benadryl to cope with my pain and stress and worries. I have complex PTSD from several traumatic events from my childhood. My parents died when I was very, very young. I was assaulted by people I trusted. I've had horrible experiences in the hospital, and a bunch more. I get panic attacks, disassociate, and have meltdowns when I get flashbacks or night terrors. I'm not very good at coping with it, so I take pills. I'm just a messed up person." And then in August of 2020, he posted a clip from Supernatural, a clip that shows a character who can't seem to remember their own name. They stutter over their words, unable to form a complete sentence. Tired of People Faking Too says, "Short-term memory loss sucks, but that's what happens when you get addicted to Benadryl and abuse it for too long." By the way, this short clip is from Supernatural, and it's basically how I act on a daily basis when I'm delirious on DPH. Watching this unfold, watching this user fall to pieces is just so devastating. And like I said, the commenters tried to help, but there's really not much anyone could do. They commented links to resources, provided support, let them know they were listening, but Tired of People Faking Too never found a way to cope. And on September 22nd, 2020, he made his last post. 276 pills. Why the hell not? Just 1 year before, he was taking 32 pills at once. And a year and a half later, he's taking 276 pills. That's 4,500% more than the maximum recommended dose. Around 2,700 milligrams of DPH is considered an overdose. This is well beyond that threshold. Even the most experienced drug users don't ever consider taking that much. And the sad reality is, Tired of People Faking It wasn't trying to get high anymore. On October 21st, 2020, r/dead Redditors posted, "I am saddened to report that Tired of People Faking Too has passed away at 20 years old after a lengthy battle with DPH addiction." In the afternoon hours of September 22nd, 2020, Tired of People Faking Too is believed to have committed S-word via an intentional OD of DPH. The average person will better recognize DPH under the brand name Benadryl. Benadryl is an over-the-counter drug which is commonly used at therapeutic doses as an antihistamine or sleep aid. At recreational doses, DPH notoriously induces a state of delirium, and users will experience realistic and oftentimes disturbing visual and auditory hallucinations. Most chronic DPH abusers, including Tired of People Faking Too himself, report that they find the DPH high to be extremely dysphoric and unenjoyable, but still an overwhelming compulsion to continue to abuse DPH. The reason for this counterintuitive response is not medically understood. Due to low cost and ease of access, DPH abuse is a growing problem around the world. Recent social media trends, such as TikTok's Benadryl challenge, have only exacerbated this issue, particularly among young teens. I cannot stress enough just how bad DPH abuse is for the human brain. Do not be fooled by its unassuming over-the-counter status. In my opinion, chronic DPH addiction is on a comparable level of seriousness to addictions to hard drugs such as H or crystal. Chronic use, especially at higher doses, is linked to a myriad of negative physical and psychological effects, including heart issues, memory issues, partial vision/hearing loss, loss of motor function, depression, S-word ideation, brain fog, persisting hallucinations, and much, much more. Recovering addicts will still experience these symptoms, in addition to unbearable psychological withdrawal symptoms, for months or even years after stopping all drug use. Due to its relative obscurity, organized research on DPH abuse is extremely limited. But anecdotal reports suggest that some physical and psychological damage may be permanent. As difficult as the recovery process may be, death via DPH OD is a notoriously horrible way to die. Out of respect for Tired of People Faking Too, I will not go into detail in this post about what these ODs are like. Suffice to say, I hope this individual has finally found peace. I'm honestly quite sad how many new people, especially teens, are taking this drug recreationally. I don't want anyone else to have an experience of pure agony, terror, and confusion that the DPH has caused me. I want to add that I did not personally know the individual behind Tired of People Faking Too, and as such, I do not have conclusive proof of death. My presumption of death is based on Tired of People Faking Too's proclamation of active intent to unalive himself in his final 2 comments, as well as 2 posts where he claims that he's preparing to take 267 Benadryl pills, equivalent to 7 grams of diphenhydramine. This amount of DPH, a quantity apparently taken by Tired of People Faking Too, is a lethal dose. Also, I'm aware that accounts featured here are usually supposed to be at least a year old, but I'd like to request an exception on the basis that the account is approaching 1 year old and was extremely active up until the user's death. I believe Tired of People Faking Too is deserving of a memorial on this page. Deserving that he is. Addiction is a thief, stealing everything that makes life worth living, taking away families, jobs, any opportunity to live a happy life. There's a stigma around it that has people believe addicts are just bums, lazy, selfish, and the way their life has turned out is all their fault. But no one wants to live like this. No one wants to watch themselves die slowly over time, watching their friends and family live life without them, knowing their addiction is hurting everyone around them. Being addicted to something eats away at a person, and without help, that person will die. It's a sin that Tired of People Faking Too never got a chance to get that help. Never had a chance to make it out. But that last commenter couldn't have said it better. And I hope he's now at peace. Lady Iris and more snow. August 2015. You're scrolling through Reddit, looking at subreddits on the things you're most interested in. Your favorite band, the TV show you're watching, romance novels, etc. One of the subreddits you've joined is r/AskReddit. People often ask interesting questions, shower thoughts, curious if anyone else is thinking about the same random thing. And looking through the group gives you enough entertainment to make it through your lunch break. But without warning, you stumble upon a question that makes you sick. If you force someone to swallow Drano, what would happen to their insides? What? This is one of Lady Iris's first posts. One of many. Too many disturbing questions. Users think this is probably just a curious person. She's probably shopping in the grocery store, looking for cleaning supplies, when she noticed a bottle of Drano, and she randomly thought, what would happen if I drank this? It was probably just an intrusive thought, right? And what they don't know is, this comment is much more than a little curiosity. Today, Lady Iris has well over 100 posts asking these kinds of questions, and they get worse and worse the more you look at the profile. What do you enjoy the most about torture? If there were undeniable proof that a very pleasant afterlife existed for all human beings, would it still be frowned upon to kill innocent people? And if you could kill any one person in existence with absolutely no repercussions, who would it be and how would you kill them? When looking at one question, it seems innocent enough, I guess, but she asked them over and over and over again. Whoever Lady Iris is, she is thinking about these things all the time. So much so, she has to go on the internet because, God forbid she ask anyone these questions in her real life. If I had a friend asking me about murder and torture multiple times a week, I'd probably place a restraining order. But reading through her posts, it's like a car crash. You just can't look away. And the more you look, the worse it gets. I did some more digging into Lady Iris's account. And like I said, there's over 100 posts. And I noticed something odd. She asked these same questions again and again, but just worded differently. What do you love the most about evil? What is the definition of evil to you? What does evil mean to you? And users were catching on. She was demented, disturbed, and they voiced their concerns. You sound like a pretty awful person. Get professional help, now. This is a messed up question. You should be banned from Reddit for life. And the question was, why? Why does she insist on asking these questions? And what kind of answer does she even want? Well, it wasn't long before she let us know. What people know of me is wrong. They make assumptions that I post to be a troll or to get negative attention. That's not the case. I have a fetish and discussing it is fun. Ask Reddit brings in all kinds of answers and some are very creative. And yes, you heard that correctly, a fetish. She gets off at the thought of hurting others, usually in brutal ways. And it became clear to me, Lady Iris is looking for others who are attracted to the same sick, sadistic pleasures she enjoys. People that enjoy fantasizing about torture, murder, and just truly evil acts. She wants to build a community of people like her. In any other context, it sounds nice, get a community, but Lady Iris is anything but nice. She's a monster. In fact, the day before she came clean about her fetish, she asked a question that must have been so horrible, so disgusting to think about. The moderators of r/Ask Reddit removed the post. Now, I don't know what the question was. I'll assume it was about torture because one user gave her what she wanted. Another sick user commented a 6-paragraph answer on how he would torture someone, both psychologically and physically. I won't get into all of it, it's long and honestly disgusting, but here's a small excerpt from that comment. With psychological, the possibilities are endless. Introduce a ticking clock, and they're fed or given water at specific times. They learn the times, and one day, the food just stops, or is a few minutes late. Always give them a reason to live, so they crave the food you provide. As alluded to previously, maybe something as simple as a picture of a loved one. Let's skip the psychological stuff. I could go on for a while. Physical torture is entirely different. The possibilities are not endless, as there are a few torture methods that cause severe pain but are entirely non-lethal. Even 1,000 paper cuts will eventually lead to death by blood loss. I believe the key for this physical torture is heightening the senses, and the most obvious for this would be to remove the eyes, or at least the eyesight. Then, not only will they be unaware of what's coming, they'll feel the pain deeper, smell the blood or burning even stronger, hear their own screams even louder, and it gets even worse from there. Trust me. Honestly, my stomach is sick reading how this user would torture someone so wickedly, so ruthlessly, just absolutely destroying them. And Lady Iris's response? Great answer and enjoyable read. Thanks. Now, Lady Iris at no point has a post describing anything like this. She asks a lot of questions about inflicting pain on someone, but never says how she would do it, what her fantasies actually are. She says in a lot of comments that this is all just a way for her to vent, that when she can't stop daydreaming about murder, she takes it to Reddit anonymously. It's not harmful to anyone, and if someone dislikes what she posts, they should just keep scrolling. She isn't planning on hurting someone. Or is she? Another post, this time on morbid questions. Why is there no link to a homicide hotline on the sidebar of this sub? Some users state that if one were to call a homicide hotline, the operator would have to call law enforcement. Lady Iris thinks this is unconstitutional. Only someone with a plan to commit murder should have the cops called on them. Throughout her comments, she tries to make it seem like this is all for fun, discussion of her fantasies. She has no real intention of hurting anyone, and there's no reason to be concerned. Many times, she gets annoyed at users' reactions. A lot of comments think this is either for attention or something is seriously wrong. Lady Iris tells these people to move on if they don't like what they're seeing. Everything is fine here. But it was clear. She was devolving. This was starting to stray from the typical questions, demented as they are, and she's clearly concerned she may want to hurt someone. When talking about the homicide hotline, she says, there's a difference between announcing when and where you're going to kill someone, and simply saying you have strong homicidal urges and you need help coping. She says in a couple of comments how she sought help from therapy, but it didn't help, and now she's just accepted it. This is who she is, and as long as she has a place to vent, everything is under control. I don't want to change. The only frustrating thing about it is that I can't easily satisfy my desires without risking my own freedom and safety. Otherwise, I love getting enjoyment out of the suffering of others. It makes life more interesting. These fantasies are a door into Lady Iris's mind, but with someone as unhinged as her, there's no telling if they can keep that door closed or not. But it wouldn't take long for the door to finally open. I found a thread where people are discussing whether or not Lady Iris is a troll, and one user posts a link to a now deleted comment, and it reads, I've killed a cat. No, it's not a person, but I don't see it being much different. I love seeing people in pain. This user then attaches a comment thread citing where he got it, and it was Lady Iris. Now we know her sadistic urges were more than a fantasy. She'd finally gone off the deep end. All that talk about it not being real, she was just being curious, was all a lie. She finally snapped and the truth was out. And 10 years ago, on January 5th, Lady Iris made her last post. She says, which location would you choose if you're going to commit a mass shooting? She doesn't interact much on that post. Someone replies and says they think a sports arena would be a great target. Lady Iris replies, thanks for at least answering properly. And then she's gone. Just like that. Hundreds of terrible Ask Reddit posts terrorizing the internet with her sick obsessions gone. And people are thankful she's gone. Or was she? But I've done some more digging, and I found something strange. Meets user More Snow. They started posting in 2023, 8 years after Lady Iris disappeared. And their posts reminded me of someone. All they wanted to talk about was murder, torture, and evil. They ask, what is an execution method never done before? Who would be your victims if you were a killer? What is a safe place for killers? And what did all of this remind me of? Well, it reminded me of Lady Iris. So many questions over and over and over again, all just worded a little bit different. But that wasn't all. There were even more similarities. They both frequented the same subreddits, r/AskReddit, r/morbidquestions, and r/namenerds. And remember a couple of minutes ago when we discovered Lady Iris killed a cat? More Snow asks, what would happen if you force a cat to eat a mouse alive? How do cats survive jumping from tall buildings? If human female cats were real, would having intimate time with them be considered illegal? And could this be the very same person? Is it possible that there are two very sick people posting such similar questions on the same platform? Questions about death, evil, murder, and craving all of it? Maybe. Or would Lady Iris wait 8 years to make her return? The sadistic dreams, the same sick questions, and of course, the cats. Now look, this is all speculation and there are some differences between the accounts, but the similarities are hard to deny. Not only are both of these users obsessed with death, but obsessed with ways to die that no one else has ever thought of. No, Lady Iris and More Snow aren't satisfied with a quick death or murder of someone horrible. They want innocent victims. They want someone to suffer as long as possible. In the most damning piece of evidence, a question asked by More Snow. Does anyone here want Lady Iris to return? And to me, that is the most damning piece of evidence I have seen. Lady Iris isn't a super famous Reddit user. And for this new user, More Snow, to mention her and say her name explicitly and say, would anyone like her to return, is very, very suspicious. Lady Iris wanted a community. She wanted friends, someone who had the same fantasies, someone who wouldn't be sickened by hers. And unfortunately for her, I don't think she was well liked. Maybe she got too many PMs telling her she needed professional help. She was just a troll looking for attention. She was disgusting. Her fantasies were sick and she should be ashamed of herself. And those are just a few things she probably got sick of hearing. But who knows what reaction she got behind the closed doors of a private message. Maybe it was so bad she decided she needed to keep her imagination all to herself until the urge got too strong again and she had nowhere to put it. So years later, she makes another account to see if anyone would be interested in joining her disgusting, twisted community. People who know exactly how they would torture a human being. People that have a whole plan for removing one's eye first before torturing them. People that want to watch an innocent cat suffer. Either More Snow is Lady Iris, or they found community in each other. I guess we'll never know. We'll just have to walk around, looking over our shoulders, knowing that there are people out there obsessed with murder, torture, death, and evil. And unfortunately, we can only hope it's one person, because we don't want two of them walking around, unsure if they can resist their urge. And so what do you think? Do you think Lady Iris and More Snow are just trolls looking for negative attention? Or do you think they are serial killers in the making that just can't keep their mouth shut? Creepy neighbor. Most people have annoying neighbors. They play music at 1 a.m, slam the front door of the building as loud as they possibly can, or want to have a conversation at 6 a.m. when you're leaving for work. Living so close to others is frustrating, an inconvenience. But some aren't as lucky to only have it as an inconvenience. In May of 2025, user content_days4478 took to r/creepy encounters, looking for advice on a neighbor that just moved in across the hall from her. The post is titled, "Something about this guy in my apartment building doesn't feel right." Not really sure where to post this, but whatever. I just need to get it off my chest. I live in a pretty average apartment complex. Nothing fancy, 3 floors, kind of quiet. I've been here a little over a year now, and most people keep to themselves. Say hi in the hall, take out the trash, that's it. A few weeks ago, this new guy moved into the unit across from mine. Early 30s maybe? Thin, buzz cut, always wearing the same gray hoodie, even when it's hot out. I didn't really think much of him at first. People come and go here. He leaves his door open sometimes, not like open, but cracked. Just enough to see the light on inside. I never hear any noise, no TV, no talking. I've never seen anyone go in or out except him. One time I was taking the trash out around 1 a.m. and he was just standing in the hallway, not doing anything. No phone, just standing by his door, staring at the floor like he was waiting for something. I said hey, and he didn't even flinch, just kept standing there like I wasn't there. I walked past him and felt my skin crawl, like when you know someone's watching you. Fast forward to last night. I woke up around 3 a.m. cause I heard this soft knocking. Not loud, just a few taps, spaced out. I thought it was my door, but when I looked through the peephole, no one was there. I stood there for a second, and right as I started to turn away, I heard it again. This time, it sounded like it was coming from inside the hallway, Just slow, spaced out knocks like someone testing how quiet they could be. I opened the door and looked out. Nothing. But his door was open again, a little wider than usual. I couldn't see anything inside, just darkness. I didn't go any closer, closed my door, locked everything, sat in my living room with the lights on like a dumbass for an hour before going back to bed. He didn't leave his apartment at all today. I know because I stayed home from work just to see. No movement, no sound, just the door. Shut tight now. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but something about him just feels wrong. Like he's pretending to be normal but doesn't actually know how. I don't know. OP isn't sure where to turn. She considers going to either management or the cops, but to say what? I have a bad feeling about this guy. There were 3 taps on my door last night and I think it was him. Would that get her anywhere? But most users agree something is wrong. Our eyes aren't cameras. Our minds aren't computers. We don't consciously catch everything, but we develop a sense that keeps us alive because danger isn't always obvious. Always trust your gut. You have it for a reason. Users comment and tell her to be extra vigilant. Get pepper spray. Get a Ring camera. Stop taking the trash out in the middle of the night. She does end up contacting management, but she says they can't do anything unless something happens, as if these interactions meant nothing. But one user sees the danger signs and remembers another story, one with much more devastating consequences. The commenter tells OP to look up the murder of Lauren Giddings. Lauren was a law student at Mercer University School of Law, and her story was similar to the OP, and her new neighbor, too similar. Lauren had a neighbor, Stephen McDaniel. Stephen was another law student who lived across the hall from Lauren. What seemed like a friendly, neighborly relationship on the surface was actually a terrifying one. One night, he held up a 6-foot wooden stick with a camera duct taped to the end and recorded the inside of Lauren's apartment. Why? Well, Lauren had a burglar bar, and he wanted to know how it was secured. He was looking for a way in. Later that night, Stephen broke into her apartment, murdered her, and dismembered her body in her own bathtub with a hacksaw. He discarded her remains in a dumpster on campus, which police later found and linked to Stephen. And after reading this, OP was shaken, to say the least. I just looked it up. That's honestly terrifying. I can't believe how similar some of that feels. Definitely not shaking this off now. Thanks for sharing. But OP assures the commenters and herself she'll be more cautious, taking the trash out late, opening the door after she heard the taps. That was over now. She'd be more prepared. She bought herself pepper spray and would behave more carefully. And 6 months pass before the OP posts their second update. I wasn't planning on updating because I honestly tried to convince myself I was overreacting. I even stopped checking this account for months. But the last few weeks have been the worst it's ever been. And I don't think this is something I can keep brushing off. For a while after the original post, the guy across the hall went quiet. He stopped leaving his door cracked, stopped standing in the hallway at weird hours. I didn't even hear him moving around. If anything, it felt like he just disappeared. I actually wondered if he moved out without me noticing. Then he started paying attention to me. The first time, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. I opened my door to leave for work and his door was already open. Full swing. Lights off inside. He was standing right at the threshold, facing me. Like he had been standing there for a while. Like he was waiting for me to open the door. He didn't say anything. Didn't smile. Didn't even blink. His eyes were locked on my hands while I locked up my place. Not my face, my hands. When I walked past him, he stepped backward into his apartment and closed the door, slowly and silently. I told myself he was just awkward. The next day, he knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. Middle of the day. Not testing knocks like before. Deliberate ones. When I opened the door, he was inches from my doorway, holding something at his side. I couldn't see what it was, but it looked like a dark handle or strap. He said, "Do you hear them at night?" I asked who he meant. He didn't clarify. He just nodded once, like he expected me to understand, and walked back to his place. Door shut. No explanation. That week was the first time I started feeling like he was listening for me. Like he knew when I got home, when I showered, and when I moved around. Anytime I walked near my door, I heard the faintest shift of wood from across the hall, like someone adjusting their weight on the other side. The tapping started again a few days ago. The exact same soft, spaced out taps. Every single time I approached the door, it stopped instantly. I started checking the peephole every few minutes. Nothing. But twice I swear I caught the tiniest sliver of light disappearing under his door, like he'd moved away just before I looked. Yesterday was the worst thing so far. I came up the stairs with groceries and froze when I saw him. He was crouched directly in front of my door. Not touching it, just crouched there. Both hands hanging in front of him. His face angled toward the door like he was listening to the inside of my apartment. He didn't react when I spoke. He didn't even startle. He just stood up very slowly and said, with this weird, calm voice, "You shouldn't ignore them." Then he walked back across the hall. No expression, no explanation. Door shut. I actually thought about calling the police, but what would I even say? My neighbor crouched near my door. He never threatens me. He never raises his voice. Everything he does is just slightly wrong. Off, on purpose, I think. This morning, something happened that made my stomach drop. I woke up feeling exhausted since the tapping started around 3 a.m. again. I didn't get up, didn't make a sound, didn't turn on a single light. I stayed still and just listened. When I opened my door to leave around 8, he opened his door at the exact same second. Perfect timing. I hadn't made noise in hours. He couldn't have heard me coming. I was barefoot and the latch was silent. He just looked at me and said, "You didn't sleep well." Not a question, just a statement. Like he knew. He shouldn't know anything about what goes on in my apartment. As he went back inside, I noticed something for the first time. The inside of his place looks empty. Not like messy empty, more like there's just nothing in there. No furniture near the doorway, no shelves, just blank walls. And on one of these walls, right behind him as he closed the door, I'm almost positive I saw something pinned up. A bunch of small rectangles, arranged in a grid. Could have been photos, but I only saw them for a second before the door shut. I don't want him to jump to conclusions, I really don't, but something is deeply wrong with him. I feel it in my chest every time I hear a footstep in the hall. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm not trying to make drama or go viral. I genuinely feel unsafe in my own home and I can't break my lease. If anyone has realistic advice besides just move, please tell me. I'm trying not to panic, but he's getting bolder and I think he's watching me more closely than I originally thought. And some comments suggest mental illness. Someone says, this sounds like a whole psychosis, paranoia, auditory hallucinations. Hopefully he's not also starting to stalk you. Most people with schizophrenia or other mental illnesses are not stalkers, but either way, I'd be at least speaking to the sheriff's department. They probably already know of him, to be honest. But how could you know that? How could you really know? And the OP responds anxiously. The stalking part is the main thing that spooks me. He knows my schedule and everything I'm doing. And then the story of Lauren Giddings comes back to haunt OP. Is he watching her like Stephen McDaniels was watching Lauren? Is he figuring out how to get into her apartment? Figuring out what her schedule is so he can keep track of her? Is that what he wants? To know her every move so he can plan his murder? You shouldn't ignore them. Do you hear them at night? You didn't sleep well. These aren't violent. They're not inherently intimidating. They're just creepy. Creepy enough to keep her up at night. Have her exhausted all day. Her guard down. Vulnerable. OP had to take action soon. And in her third and final update, she does finally get a Ring camera after probably hundreds of users told her to. And what happens next is unbelievable. The next day, I took advice from my last post and did something small but discreet. I didn't want my landlord knowing, so I got a peephole camera. It looks exactly like a normal peephole from the outside. No lights, no sound, nothing obvious. I installed it at night and didn't tell a single person. The next couple of nights were calm and I felt a breath of fresh air. No activity. 2 nights later, around 3:10 a.m., I got emotion alert. I almost didn't open it. The footage starts with an empty hallway. Quiet. Then his door opens. He steps out fully this time. No hesitation. No looking around. He walks straight up to my door. He doesn't look at the peephole. Doesn't look confused. He just raises his hand and taps. 3 taps. Slow. Evenly spaced. The exact taps I've been hearing for months. He stands there for a few seconds after, like he's listening for something inside. Then he turns and calmly walks back across the hall and shuts his door. That's it. No reaction, no awareness he's being recorded, like this was normal. The next morning, I went straight to the landlords and didn't downplay it anymore. I showed them the video. I told them about the tapping, the hallway stuff, him being outside my door, and they took it way more seriously this time. A few hours later, they came back and told me something that made my stomach drop. They said that the apartment is supposed to be vacant. Not, we'll check. Not, maybe the records are wrong. Vacant. No lease, no tenant, no one authorized to be there. They said maybe someone was squatting and asked if I was okay with them doing a walkthrough tour. I said yes, and we went upstairs. His door was unlocked. The apartment was empty, completely. No furniture, no clothes, no food, no trash, no bedding. Like no one had ever lived there. The managers looked just as freaked out as I felt. I went back into my apartment shaking and locked the door behind me. And that's when I noticed something else. My peephole camera was gone. I had locked my door when I left. It was still locked when I came back. No damage, no forced entry. Does he have keys? About 15 minutes later, there were police everywhere. Multiple cars. Officers going in and out of the building. They knocked on my door and told me to grab essentials. I was escorted out along with a lot of other residents. No one's telling us much. Just that we can't go back in right now. I'm sitting at McDonald's a couple blocks over, writing this, looking for a place to stay. A new police car comes past, going towards the building almost every 5 minutes. I don't know if he was ever supposed to be there. I don't know how he got in, and I don't know how long he's been listening from the other side of my door. I'll update when I know more, if I can. And that's it. That's the last we hear from OP. Sitting in McDonald's, thoughts racing, having no idea what's going on. It almost seems like a dream. Did she make this whole thing up? After looking at the bone-dry apartment across the hall from her, it's like he was never there. Now, some users think this is fake. And who knows, maybe it is. Maybe OP is just some bored rando on the internet that wants to share some fictional story. I don't know though. I mean, updates over the course of 6 months? That's a lot of dedication for someone faking it. Now, the writing is very dramatic. Would someone talk like this when sharing a story at a party? Probably not. It does seem more like a novel than it does a real recap of someone's experience. But the way she comments, it seems incredibly genuine. I moved here when I went through college and never moved back. I have no family in the area, and the closest friends are a minimum couple-hour drive. I've called a few, and the chances of crashing are pretty low. I'm looking at hotels I can stay at till I move back, but I'm terrified he's going to be there. And now, could this all be fiction? It's possible. But is it also possible that this was just a young woman who's been tormented by a psycho neighbor? Well, crazier things have happened. And if it happened to Lauren Giddings, it could happen to anyone. Either way, it makes me want to sleep with the lights on tonight.